Connor, this is a quick lesson on adding points to a game, so you can actually score a point and make it a proper game. So in this game I've got an apple here, and the apple forever goes to this side of the thing. So I moved the apple first, and then I dragged in a go to, because then the numbers are correct of where I want it to go to first. And once it's done that, it then glides across, and I move the apple to the other side, and I put in the glide code, because then the numbers were correct for this side of the game. And then I put in a random from the green maths code. I put in a random to say don't always take 1 second, take 1 or 2 seconds, and therefore the game's a bit more random. On the cat, I've got it again, I've chosen its starting position, so it always starts there. And on the space bar I've got it changing y by 50, waiting for a millisecond because we can then see it at the top, and then changing y by minus 50, so it does a jump. Okay? So that's me jumping. Now at the moment I'm not scoring points, so the first thing you want to do with points or time or any information that changes in the game and isn't always the same, it's called a variable, so because it varies, another word for change. So under the orange variables I now make a variable called points, and I can now set points and change points, and I can show it or decide to hide it whenever I want in the game, if that helps. You know in some games sometimes information pops up, so you can show and hide it. And you can see it's showing at the top of the screen there, so now all I've got to do is make sure the code does the right thing to score points. So the first thing you have to do with a game with points is make sure the beginning of the game, the green flag, sets points to 0, okay? Or whatever you want to set it to. Whatever the game needs the points set to at the beginning. With timer, it might be set to 60 and it'll be counting down. I'll do timer in a different video. So I'm setting points at the beginning of the game, and then when does he actually score a point? Well, he scores a point when if he's up in the air and he's touching the apple. That's how he scores a point. So I need to make sure that I check that when he's right at the top of his jump. So I go to events, and I'm going to do the check. Now I'm going to separate the code properly. So I'm going to broadcast a message at the top of the jump here, change Y, and I'm going to say, have I scored? Okay. There you go, question mark. All right, so at the top of the jump, I've got to see have I scored. So when I receive that message, I'm going to keep the check separately. So when I receive have I scored, I'm going to do the have I scored code. And the have I scored code is very simply a check if I'm touching the apple. And you do that with the if question from control, and the sensing is sensing what's happening in the game, so that's where you're going to find those options like touching stuff and colours and asking questions and seeing what's happening in the game. And I can see here that I can do a touching, and I can change it from there to the apple. And if he's touching the apple, I can then go back to my variables and I can change the points by 1. I've now got the points set to 0. At the top of the jump, I see that's when I want to see if I've scored a point. So that's when I broadcast the message, have I scored? And the code for doing that is have I scored? Well, only if you're touching the apple. So now I can press green flag, and I don't get a point if I miss it, but if I touch it, you can see I score a point. Like that. And then the next stage will be to end the game and have an if question that's forever. If my points reach a certain number, like 10, then I can do a game over and broadcast game over. But that's how to end the game. But that's points in my game, and I'm now it's getting more like a real game. Kia ora guys, that's points.